And I'll go into full screen mode. And hi, everyone. Hello. It's lovely to see you here. And I've got the hair pulled back today, so you might not recognise me. Welcome to session 3. Session 3, we're in the middle of the 5 sessions. So this is the turning point now to not just pointing out what's been going wrong or what's been creating the problems. Now we're coming up with the solutions. So tonight I'm focusing heavily on the solutions, which is really, there are 5 of them, but they all work together very closely to break down and neutralise all the negativity around reactivity. Do you like all those itchy words? I hope you do, because that's what's been going on for you. Goes on for every couple at different times. Some handle it better than others. So, hi, I'm Dee Tozer. For those who are new here tonight, I'm a psychologist for 25 years, couples coach I call myself these days, mentor, counsellor, therapist, and I'm bringing these free live sessions to you to help kick you along into getting more help if you need it, or learning enough of the good stuff along the way here to change what's going on between you for the positive so that you can thrive. So without any more hesitation, I'm going to move on to the slides I have here, share the screen with you and go here, that one there, which takes a bit to come up. I apologise for that being in the middle of it. And then just to there to get the full screen. Not happening, didn't happen last time. Why won't that go there? Let me see now. Yes, there we go. All right, so you should have me in a little screen somewhere to the right or the left there, or even below on whatever device you're using. And I'm looking here and seeing it's a bit dark. I'm not sure why. I've got some lights. Excuse me for a moment while I just turn them and see if it makes a difference. There we go. Right, let me just see what happens if I put the other one on. Okay. All right, well, that's a bit better, is it? Not a lot better, why not? It should be, and it just goes to show I really am live. This is not pre-recorded in any way, because here I am trying to get the lights on in the right way. You seem to be very dark behind. I don't know what that's about. Never mind. We'll just push on here. As I'm pushing on, the show has to go on, and I've just been battling a piece of grit in my eye for the last half an hour, so I apologise if that's watering, and I'm going to go like that a few times trying to clear it. So I hope you're patient with me as we move on. So tonight's session is about the positive swing now to getting your relationship right. It's about taking you along the pathway. And there are, over the years, I've identified 5 shifts you need to make to get your relationship right. 5, only 5. And they all happen within a moment. One moment, all 5, all at once. It's like when you automatically drive your car and you're suddenly going to go up a hill and you, back in the day of gears, we used to shift the gear. These days, we adjust our throttle or our pedal and the whatever the pressure is. There, we are automatically doing it as we're adjusting to all things going on around in our environment. And that's what these 5 key shifts do. So here they are. The 5 shifts are: your focus needs to shift, your presence, this is in summary here, your mindset, your priority, and most of all, your intention. There are 5 of them. In a little while, I'll go into a lot more detail, but right now I want to talk to you about what happens when we first start out together. I keep taking us back there in every session. Because firstly, we get together, don't we? We meet somebody and we make sure, if we really want to be in that person's life or have that person in ours, that we get together. The next thing to that process is that then we are together. We become an item, we become a couple. And once we are together, we have to be together. And I like to talk about being together, because being together is everything you do together, isn't it? It's tolerating a whole heap of stuff that you don't even realise that you're tolerating. There's a lot of stuff goes on in being together, which we know about. We've gone through a lot of it already, but now we're shifting it to positive. And then the next phase of that is, how do we stay together? The biggest challenge of all, isn't it? Staying together. And as I said earlier, only 2/3 of marriages and de facto relationships actually stay together. They survive 3 to 5 years on average. Loose statistics, I know, I'm not drawing on any regular research, but from my own experience in my own practice, that's how it fits. So look at that now, those 3 things. Which is the hardest part for you, do you think? Getting together, being together, or staying together? Yes, which is hardest? Well, most of us would think that the being together part is the hardest part. And yes, and we know it can be very hard. Staying together in misery or emotional isolation is also hard. It's very hard. Let me tell you this, breaking up is extremely hard, harder than anybody could possibly imagine, until you're caught up and it gets a life of its own. It can affect you and your family for years and years, and even a lifetime. So what is the answer here? What's the answer to staying together? And that is in being together, but it's being together quite differently from what you think. The answer is this word, intentionality. I use it a lot. And then I talk about relational intentionality, relational being relating to your partner, your spouse, your loved one, your husband or your wife. Relating intentionally, or you could say, which I do, relational intentionality. Intentionality is the answer. So those 5 shifts I talked about earlier were the 5 shifts to intentionality. Here they are again. The first one is to shift your focus from the heat of the moment, when there's something happening that you don't like, or you're reacting to, or some criticism has come across, or some attack, or some defense. That's right. One needs to shift focus to your long-term outcome. That's right. Your lifetime outcome in that moment. And then the next part is, at the same time, shift your presence. So your presence in the heat of that moment is so important, so that you can switch off the heat or turn it down. Turn down the temperature of a rising, escalating hot-headedness, or nasty comment, or nasty retort or reaction. Then the third one happens at the same time, shifting your mindset to be mindful of what is more important in the longer term, bigger picture for you. Is it to be right at that moment in time, or to do the right thing? I speak about that so often, and the next 2 sessions we have will be a lot focused on doing the right thing and what that really means. We all think we know, but it's interesting when I tease it all out how much we don't know. And then shift number 4 is shifting your priority, which is all happening. Remember, all of this is happening at about the same moments in time. And that's to stay focused on what is important at the end of the day. What is the priority for you? Your intentional priority is your relationship outcome. And if that outcome is staying together happily as a couple, entwined in each other, then that has to be your priority, doesn't it? And you're going to shift to that with these other shifts going on. They all work together in concert, is a good expression I use. And the 5th one is you shift to the good old intention I'm talking about. You stay centered on your relationship intention. You know what it is. We need to work out what it is. And some people are stuck in doubt. You know, are you in it for your lifetime, long term? Or are you hesitating every day? You're not totally committed. You're not totally choosing to be with the person you're with. You're tolerating it, just. If that's the case, things need to shift quickly. So we move away from intentionality now to emotionality, because that's where the pain comes from. Emotionality causes so much pain because it's all reactive. It's all to do with triggers that we react to, a trigger from our partner or our loved one. And it's often not a pleasant sight for others to watch, nor a pleasant sound for them to hear if you're reacting, or for you to experience, or anyone around you, particularly your loved one or spouse, to hear if you're reacting. Reactivity brings on the heartache. That's right, it typically leaves at least one of you hurting, with your heart hurting badly, and often both hearts hurting, particularly if it goes on over and over and over again and you can't find another way. So here's the way. We go back to the 5 shifts to intentionality. And this totally and absolutely neutralizes reactivity. It winds the volume of reactivity, or the likelihood of it, back down to a minimum amount. Where if you do react, and we're all going to, we're human, it's with a kindness and an understanding of what you're saying and what you're not saying, doing and not doing. It's not out in this world of reactivity and say anything you feel like. It's not about defending yourself. It's not about attacking. So therefore it neutralizes reactivity. So now what I'm going to do is bring you back to me. Got to stop the share. And I'm just going to turn on I've got a little screen at the back that is going to give me some wording for you so I don't miss out anything. And I actually think that it's probably causing the light to be out of whack here tonight, but never mind, let's go with that. So I'm going to have to duck around the back of my computer and get that going so that we can move on to the next phase. So excuse the top of me leaning over here while I get going with this. This takes a tick. There we go. While I take you through all of the intricacies of the 5 shifts. It's not terribly hard, but it's about practice and how you practice it and when you practice it. And it shows you how to fix your relationship fast, because when we get together and we be together and we stay together, we're putting a lot of stress on ourselves. We're going into foreign territory usually, and we don't know how to be together. And that usually determines whether we stay together. If you're hovering on the brink of breakup or just plain coexisting miserably, then the next 5 shifts, they are the most important for you to hear and grasp. That's right. The same things I was just talking about. Those 5 shifts neutralize hostile reactivity. And while it seems a lot to manage, there are only 5. And they do all happen pretty much at once. And you get practiced like you do with anything you get good at. So shift number 1 again, focusing from the heat of the moment to your long-term outcome. That's right. Reminder again, shift number 2, shifting your presence to be present in the heat of the moment. So you can quickly turn down or switch off that reactive heat, that hot-headedness, and resolve things amiably. Shift number 3, to shift your mindset and be mindful of what's more important, to be right or to do the right thing. Shift number 4 is to stay focused on your priority, what is important at the end of the day. And shift number 5 is to shift to intention and stay centered on your relationship intention. Know what it is. So I know I've repeated myself there. I'm not apologizing though, because it takes a bit to get this through. All right? It takes quite a bit to absorb this. It's practice. There is a worksheet I'll send to you that keeps it front of mind for you. You can put it on your fridge or your bathroom mirror. Because it all looks like it could be quite simple. It maybe looks like it's obvious. But it's not simple or obvious when you're at odds with each other. But the good news is that it does only really take you 3 weeks, 21 days to change a habit. When inconsiderate words are used and you've got knee-jerk reactivity being the norm, and harmful consequences therefore are the result of all of the above, then the distancing in your relationship starts, or it's increased. One or both partners will often feel the good old word resentful or not heard, and that's the resentment cycle starting and stacking up. It's usually not acknowledged, as we know, nor addressed, not even noticed maybe. Most people are not aware of that festering resentment. We've said that, which is building up. And then this resentment pops out and fires up the next difference of opinion. Okay, which turns into a massive argument quite easily, in a millisecond often. And sometimes that's a destructive, hostile argument, which is very mean, leaving a trail of wreckage. Right, and more resentment festers on. So let's talk about the detail. If neither of you are focusing on the long-term plan for your relationship, then you're both going to stay in the heat of the moment, often saying terrible things that you don't mean, and with no real idea of how much either of you is damaging the long-term prospects of you staying together. We just fire things at each other. And when couples come to see me, they're typically seeking to work out whether they can fix things, or if they have a future together, or should they break up. And sadly, should they break up is often at the top of the agenda. I say sadly because often it's really unnecessary that they're even in that situation. And when I ask them if they want to break up, really, often each partner will say he or she is uncertain, or one partner will say definitely not, I don't want to. So my next question is then, well, when was a time when you were certain you would never break up, that you would be together forever? And usually both partners chime in together and say, yes, they can remember that. I say, when was it? But they actually can't recall it other than their first few heady months together. So my next question then is, if you had focused on the all-important outcome of staying together as much as you were focused on your initial outcome of getting together and then being together, would you be in this uncertain situation right now? What would be different? And the typical answer is, we would have been nicer to each other or similar. So I ask, what would nicer be like? And one most common answer to this is, we wouldn't have been so critical, or I wouldn't have been so intolerant, or I would have had more patience. So how would it feel if you both had the same focus on your outcome? This leads to shift number 2, which is to be present. And if you are present, you can immediately switch down the heat if an irritation is flaring up or a nasty retort's on the tip of your tongue. To be present is to be consciously aware of your own emotions and your feelings and the rising reactivity, and calm yourself down. Even better if at the same time you're consciously aware of your partner's emotions, feelings, and rising reactivity. You can hold yourself back from rising to anger or a defensive retaliation. You can maintain your own self-control, as hard as that may seem. But is it really? Because back in the good old days of when you were first together, it wasn't so hard. So why is it now? And why is it getting harder as time goes by? Well, in the beginning, as I've said before, you put your best foot forward. And I've often heard couples say, we never argued during our first year together. We all know the rose-coloured glasses analogy. I've mentioned it in the last few sessions. And yes, that would have been part of it. However, the main part was that you were present then, because you were focused on the outcome and you were intending to get your girl or get your man. You were putting on your best face, I've said it before, and not wanting the dark parts of yourself to be seen and rejected. So how would it feel if you and your partner were present and able to step back from the heat of the moment now, so gently mellowing or melting into each other's concerns? Brings us to the next shift. It naturally follows on to shift your mindset, shifting from being right to doing the right thing. How many arguments do you have that are to do with being right? And it is a mindset shift from not only being right, but also understanding why you need to be right. If you often catch yourself pushing your viewpoint and taking the I am right or this is the right way position, then it could be a lot to do with why there's so much friction in your relationship. Taking the I am right position is essentially telling your partner or others around you that they are wrong. Yes, that's the message you're sending when you take the I am right position. So you can see that it's quite a shift, a mindset shift, to be able to think about it from the other person's point of view. And think, what is right for him or her? What is right for our relationship? It could be that both of you take the I am right position and therefore have huge clashes. Or it could be that one of you is on the receiving end of the I am right statements from your partner and you are at a serious loss as to how to handle him or her, especially if you know he or she is not right. How do you tackle such a strongly opinionated partner in a calm, cooperative way? This is where changing your mindset to permit your I am right partner to be right. Yes, that's the truth. You heard me. It is the answer. Changing your mindset to a just let it go response with no reactivity will start to have a softening touch, especially if you can muster some kind words and say them in a gentle voice like, okay, we'll go with that then. Now, some of you might be thinking, what? And let him or her be right every time, even if he or she's wrong? Well, my answer is yes. The need to be right will be softened right out once there's full permission to be right, and especially when it's couched in non-challenging phrases. So mindset words responses like let it go are good. How would it feel to be on the receiving end of your partner doing the right thing instead of always being right? Brings us to shift number 4. What really matters at the end of the day? This is about your priority. If your long-term relationship is your priority, then your partner's welfare is your priority. Your partner's dignity, self-respect, and confidence are your priority, which all points to showing up as your best self as your priority. Hence, no attacking him or her with criticism or eye-rolling or contempt, nasty defensives or silent treatment. Now, we all have rough days and days where we have less patience than other days, or more deadlines, or our hormones are out of whack. Nevertheless, if in the main you're showing up as your best self, then your relationship will ride the waves of those rougher days with ease and with grace. If you keep your eye fixed on the long-term goal, then you can ensure the steps along the journey of coupledom are more steady, supportive, and harmonious. This is not to say there won't be ups and downs, because that's life and we're human with personalities and frailties which can mess up calm waters anywhere. And at the end of the day, your partner is your priority. That's what we need to understand. So how would it feel if you both had the same priority, each other? So to round off with shift number 5, your intentionality, the magic word. Imagine this. You wake up in the morning with your day in mind. Most of us do. You have a good idea of what you're going to do, where you're going, who you might see. You could be a tightly scheduled person, or you may be a go-with-the-flow person. Nevertheless, mainly we achieve most of what we set out to achieve on most days by the end of the day. That's intentionality. But how about your relationship? Does that get the same attention and planning? How would it feel if your partner focused on your relationship as much as he or she does on his or her work, business, family, other family, sports, friends, etc.? I'm speaking to you both now. How would it feel? How intentional are you about your relationship? Understanding what intentionality means is the key to unlocking the negative conflict between you. It is the gold nugget here. If you use your GPS to get from A to B, then you intentionally set out by entering your destination address in your phone app or your maps or whatever you use. And then you follow the directions, at least some of them, the parts you're not familiar with that you don't know. So how would it be if you thought of your relationship in terms of getting from A to B? A being where you are now, which may be mildly unhappy or terribly miserable, and B being the new destination for you and your partner. That destination becomes your focus, your outcome focus, your priority. And you intentionally, deliberately, on purpose, set yourself on the new road to reach that destination by taking the shortest, most direct route or route, whichever country you're in. So then making these 5 shifts will be the road signs for you. That's right. They are the road signs. So I'm just going to quickly shift out of the way what I was looking at then so that I can get the light back onto the screen, because I've got a feeling that is actually affecting it. Let me see now. Have we got more light? Not a lot. Oh, well, never mind. I'm back again, properly focused on you. And I'm here now to go on and expand on that a little bit more, because I don't believe people get out of bed every morning and think, oh, I'm going to make her miserable today. I'm going to do what I can to upset him all day. I mean, we might have the odd day when we feel like a bit spiteful and we're retaliating. Not a good thing, as we know, resentment stacking up. However, if it was a rarity and you actually had an intention to do no harm, no emotional harm to your spouse, husband, wife, partner, I wonder how that would feel. Well, you actually probably know already how it feels, because I'm sure you don't intend to do harm. It's just that you're not intending to do no harm. That's a double negative, and it can mess up the mind a little bit. Intending to do no harm means you're going to choose your words. You're going to bring your mindset into the present. And you're going to think about if you need to be right. Is it really important? It's something that's so, life-threatening that you need to be right on it right now, this minute. You cannot allow your partner or husband, wife to have an opinion. Or if they do, you're going to knock it out of the ring anyway because you're right. How's that going to be? I ask the question, if you're intending for that to be that way and to harm your relationship and harm each other or not. In my counselling room, I don't think I have ever yet, out of all those 3,000 couples, come across a couple who are intending to, other than I have had the odd few come through who I've referred on for anger management or other issues where there's violence, domestic violence involved. That's a whole different scenario. I'm not addressing that here. And even then, often that's reactive, not intentional. So if we come back to living an intentional life, it's all about how we commit to things, isn't it? And I often am talking to couples where one partner's studying, often both. And so much attention, so much commitment and dedication and intentionality goes into the study, the assignments, getting things in on time. So much of the day, all energies in the day revolve around making time for that. And yet zero attention goes to the relationship. And the relationship is your family. It's the most important thing. I know I'm probably speaking the bleeding obvious, and I don't mean to make anybody feel terribly uncomfortable. It's a wake-up call to look at it and say, absolutely, I'm not focused intentionally on having a happy day. So in this same context, I talk about how we actually show up to the day, and particularly how we show up at the end of the day, because that's when things usually go into reactive mode. When we're tired, we're weary, we've got more things to do. And I talk about tone, and in the last session too, I talked about tone a little bit. I like to lead in each session to something I'm going to speak in more detail about in the next session. So as I talk about tone, I talk about how we set the tone for our togetherness in the evening when we come home, for our connection with our children, for whatever we're doing, we set the tone. It's not up to the other person to set the tone. It's up to you, to each individual, to set the tone. Then you're both setting the tone, and you can choose your tone, can't you? You choose your tone if you go out usually with other people. You choose your tone, and by tone, I'm not just talking about tone of voice, I'm talking about your whole energy and vibration of positivity or negativity. We all choose it. And we all know somebody in a local convenience store somewhere, or somewhere we go regularly to buy our coffees, whatever we buy, cafes, whatever. And we will remember the fabulous person who looked after us, who knew what customer and client service was, with a smile, and absolutely beamed and gave off that positive energy. And we respond to that, don't we? Who then can recall ever going, oh, you're so up yourself, you're so, bright and bubbly and I can't stand it? Do you actually remember saying that to anybody that served you in one of these stores I'm talking about? Probably not. Yet we'll say that to our partner. You probably can remember doing that maybe to your spouse, who might come home on an absolute high, feeling fabulous, or has deliberately, intentionally put himself or herself in the emotional space of higher vibrating energy to come in on a high and give you a hug and be positive and around the home, and you might bite back. I had an experience here after last night's session. I might have mentioned it in the session, we had major windstorms here, and the street is full of lots and lots and lots of trees, big trees, beautiful. And I took my 2 Cocker Spaniel doggies out for a walk afterwards. They love it. And it was even a bit scary for me walking along the street with them. I didn't get very far. I only got down about 20 houses. And a neighbour, hadn't met him before, across the road to walk past his house, and he pulled in off the street coming home from work. So it was probably about 9:15 at night. In Australia, it wouldn't matter where it was 9:15 at night. And he got out of his car and came and said, are the dogs all right? Am I all right out in this weather? Do you think I should get home? With the most pleasant, natured, friendly, warm, positive gentleness. Not bossy, but concerned. And did I need him to take one of the dogs and go home? Because I had just decided to cross over, turn around and go back. It was getting a bit hairy, as we say in Australia. And I thought, I wonder, he's married, he had a wedding ring on. I know he does because I've seen the children out the front. I wonder if he's going to go inside and take that whole tone, attitude inside and with warmth. Probably was. And I wonder what he was going to meet inside. Reciprocal warmth. Because that then takes us back to what I was talking about in session 2 last night, about goodwill. Remember, I was talking about goodwill and cooperation. And that lovely person, we didn't even introduce ourselves because the wind was very, very scary. But I probably will pop back and just pop a little thank you note in his letterbox as a gesture of neighbourly goodwill. Why would I go and do that? I will see him more often, I'm sure. But why would I? Because I like to think that if people have a positive tone, they need to be rewarded, recognised and uplifted for it. And that does not happen in relationships where they are surviving or dying. Uplifting and rewards don't happen. This is a little reminder here now to say, yes, you can put your 5 shifts in place. Then we need to enhance the 5 shifts that become a habit. I'll come back and talk about that in a moment. So I came home. By that time it was getting quite dark, and as I came home, a very, very large branch came down directly across from my driveway. A branch big enough that they had to have a truck come in and chip it into chips today. It was huge, and I could have been 5 minutes before walking underneath that. So I'm very grateful, intentionally grateful, and said a thank you prayer, because it didn't come down on me or my puppy dogs. So I'm very grateful. Now that, therefore, I'm leading in here to gratitude. I was grateful for that lovely neighbour to give me that extra prompt. I was turning to come home, but I wasn't feeling all that committed to it. I wanted to keep going, and I was weighing up what was the safest way. But I'm glad I turned and came, because I might have been caught under that tree. I was being looked after by goodwill, really, neighbourly goodwill. how does that therefore relate to couples? Well, couples who thrive together show goodwill, show cooperation, warmth, they provide comfort at least 80% of the time. Who knows, just a figure I pluck out of the air. 80%, I say. Doesn't matter, as long as it's by far the majority. And it's all in the long run, everything comes down to goodwill and cooperation, because you can't have a good connection without it. So if we now come back over to the 5 shifts, they are all about intentionally creating goodwill and cooperation. It's the intentionality of it that's so important. So I talk about it takes 21 days to break a habit. It takes 21 days, apparently, to create a new habit. So let's say it does take 21 days to create this new habit. You need to practice it every day then. And I can remember, I often use this example, but I remember, as a teenager, or probably not quite a teenager, wanting to be a great tennis player. I never got to anything more than district A grade, by the way, nothing brilliant. But I did get to A grade in my local district, and I was determined. So how did I do that? Well, we had an early days brick house, red brick house, and so I put a chalk target on it for where my ball needed to go, and drew a net-looking tennis net, and I stood out there for hours. And many of you will relate to this. If you've practiced a skill, whether you're a guy or a cricketer who's practiced your bowling, your batting, you're kicking a football, kicking a soccer ball, even if you practice the piano and any musical instrument, what do you have to do? Keep doing the same things over and over and getting better at them. And the whole thing about commitment, determination and intentionality is not giving up, isn't it? We don't give up because the goal is still there to get better, and we can feel the little bits of improvement every day. Every day we get a little bit better. And we back in my day, hit that ball. I used to count and write it on a piece of paper how many times in however long I was there I actually got the ball into the target for tennis. And then a bit later on, when I was doing a basketball, netball thing, I did the same thing with the hoop till I got really good at it. Dedication, commitment, determination, but I was intentional, totally intentional about how I went about that. Haven't always been intentional in my relationships. It's how I know about all this stuff. I learned the hard way, and I'm sharing it with you now so that you can learn from this and learn to apply the 5 shifts, become good at them. Even if you only become good at one, choose one of them first. And even if it's just you here and not your spouse with you, just you become good at one and watch the shift in your spouse as they realise, they notice there's a shift and a difference. And you don't let the negativity coming back at you push you off course. That's what the skill is that you need to learn and take on board here. So I like to say the most important thing, intentionality will pretty well come of its own, shift number 5. Once you make the mindset shift to not always need to be right. If you start somewhere, start with allowing yourself to do the right thing and the other person to be right most of the time, even if you know they're wrong. As long as it's not life-threatening, how much does it really matter at the end of the day? And then the other part of it is to don't give up. Even if your partner, your spouse, isn't on the same page because they haven't done any of this. You may well find, I've found it happens a lot, that as you shift and they feel the goodwill and cooperation coming in, and I said this in the last session, they'll start to warm and relax and offer more positive vibes back to you. And then gradually the warmth comes back to the comfort scenario we were talking about. And as soon as we head into the comfort, warmth and comfort, intimacy returns in the main. I know, it seems like it's a minor miracle. It happens that way though, because trust comes back. Self-protection, your walls that are up drop. You don't need to be on the defensive. You don't need to be waiting for the criticism if there isn't any, or very little. Or if somebody makes a point in a more kind, caring way, kindness comes into everything, doesn't it? But usually by the time couples are really out of whack with each other, kindness is gone. Doesn't exist anymore unless one or other gets really ill. It's the only time when ill health comes into it that some warmth and comfort is reclaimed, I guess you could say. This is not coming from the best place, but it's better than nothing, isn't it? And sometimes the couples can rebuild after that. In fact, often, particularly if I'm coaching them. So I'm not here to try and toot my own horn. It's been a journey, 25 years, helping couples, and it's through that it's become really obvious that the couples that did well in my counselling shifted their mindset and shifted to being intentionally kind, intentionally putting their relationship first, intentionally making their partner or their spouse the most important person in their life. And yes, your children, you love and adore them, and they are extremely important. And I know there'll be people that would debate that with me, that the children should be the most important in your life, but I would totally and absolutely argue that one to the end. Because if you're good together, so are your kids fine. You're showing them a fabulous example. You're showing them how to do the right thing. You're setting them up for success in life. You're showing them what intentionality is. You're showing them how kindness and cooperation works, which will help them be much better citizens, much better people, as you are showing them the best of yourselves. So tonight's been all about making the shift. There are 5. And can you see how they're all enmeshed together? They're all intertwined. And once you get into the rhythm of it, of one, the rest will flow. And if you find some resistance from your partner because they don't understand, show them. Show that person. You can sit down. Take them through it. These recordings, this will be recorded. It's not now, obviously. I'm live here, but I am recording it as we go, and it's taking me a little while to get it up onto YouTube. As soon as they're all on YouTube, probably by the time I get time to do it, it will be probably Saturday this week in Australia, and I'll email them out to everybody, or the links to them, the YouTube links, so you can watch them again. And if your partner isn't here watching with you, you can work your way gently towards encouraging your husband, wife, lover, spouse to have a look. They are an hour long, but if you're watching them on through the YouTube links, you'll be able to, as you know, I'm sure we're all watching lots of YouTubes these days, you'll be able to fast forward and take it through to the points you want to make. So this one's not a full hour tonight because there's a lot for you to take in. So we're at about the 45-minute mark, and I'm going to sign off. I'm going to leave you with quite a bit to think about there. I look forward to you joining me tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, we're moving into one of the other areas of the diamond method that I talk about quite a lot, which is all about the positive side of things. We're going into beyond friendship, beyond goodwill, beyond cooperation, into camaraderie. I know there are some people on here who've worked with me and know I've spent a bit of time talking about camaraderie and how important it is. And if you look it up in the dictionary before we get on the call, you'll get a better idea, but it doesn't really do justice to how I like to see it and how I fit it into the couple scenario. So I hope you're going to join me tomorrow night, same time, same place, same station, while we talk about camaraderie and how it fits in, and a reminder about the 5 shifts. And remember, if you would like to email me a question, you can reply to the email that's coming out to remind you about these sessions, or send a separate one to hellod, always D-double-E, hellod at D-double-E, Tozer, Tozer.com. I'm signing off for now. Thanks for joining me. Have a good evening. Bye.